Now when you've got an IEM that is coming in at less than $50, is a hybrid with 6 drivers, 1 dynamic driver and 5 balanced armature drivers, under 50 bucks, people tend to get excited. And for that reason, which is a good reason, there's a lot of people being very interested to learn more about the TRN V90s. Now this is an upgraded version of the original V90, which has supposedly been improved, but I have not personally heard the original V90, so I can't talk about that. But anyway, in this video I'm talking about the TRN V90s 6 driver hybrid in-ear monitor. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Here we are with the TRN V90s. I know a lot of people have been waiting on this one. So here's the box, and I'll keep it short and sweet. You get sweet fuck all in the box. You get a cable, the earphones, and 3 pairs of silicone ear tips. So let's get that out of the way. Fortunately, when it comes to the build quality of the earphones themselves, the V90s is really nice. Comes in 2 colors. One is black and this is the crimson red. I think the other one is called space black, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. It's got the increasingly popular QDC connectors. Now these are turning up on just about every fucking budget model, and I don't have a problem with that. I kind of like these in a sense, although I don't like the fact that every fucking connector has this right angle on it, which makes it quite difficult in some cases for people with larger ears like myself. But in this particular case, I don't have any trouble with the fit at all. But yeah, these 2-pin connectors, you know, I like them. The problem is I've got a lot of really nice third-party cables and 2-pin cables, like 0.78 cables and whatnot, that just do not work well with this type of connection. What can I say? It's not likely that I would actually use a really high quality cable with a budget IM like this anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. But anyway, let's move on. So here, let's move in a bit closer now. Alright, so here's the shell of the V90s, and it's quite lovely. It's aluminium alloy shell. Got this lovely red on the faceplate, TRN logo on the faceplate as well, with this sort of ripple design. There's the QDC connector there. Hopefully I'm in focus this time. And the actual shell has kind of a matte finish, very smooth all over, lovely shape and design. It's very lightweight. It is extremely comfortable. In terms of comfort, this is very good. I can wear these all day long, no worries. There is the nozzle, which is sort of average in length, and of course you've got your metal mesh protective cover there. So that about covers the shells. They are really comfortable. They're beautifully built. The seam between the faceplate and the shell is flawless. There's no gaps, there's no glue residue or anything. It's really nice. At the current price of $40, I mean, these are off to a cracking start. 6 drivers, beautiful build, metal construction. And now let's have a look at the cable. It's pretty standard TRN stuff, and just ignore the knots in there. That happens because of the thinness and these ear hooks here. I'm not going to bother trying to untangle it now. But the cable, it's a 6N OCC copper cable. It is quite good quality. The handling could be better. It's not all that attractive, but it's a tightly braided cable. there is minimal microphonics and it handles pretty well, so I've got no real complaints about the cable, especially for something at this price point. But like I say, it does get tangled fairly easily. Right, so moving back out, and it's time to talk about how these actually sound now. Like I said, there's been a lot of interest, and I've had heaps of people asking me about these. They've been waiting for this review. And it's no surprise. I mean, 6 drivers, hybrid, $40 something, I think. Great price, really good price. So how do they sound? Well, you know what? For the most part, these are pretty darn good. My initial impressions were not overly positive, but that's actually because for some reason I thought these were a sort of $100 set, $100 earphone, and maybe they were, but it's a little confusing at the moment because there have been so many sales going on. There was the 11/11 sale, then the 12/12 sale, so everything's been discounted. So I'm not sure what the original MSRP was, but for some reason I thought these were a $100 set, and that's why initially I was kind of harsh in my giving my impressions on them. I said they weren't very good. Having said that, at the $40 mark that they are available at now, these are pretty decent. So these have a V-shaped signature. They have emphasized bass and treble, good end-to-end extension. The bass has nice depth to it. The treble is a little bit lively, and the mid-range is slightly recessed. So let's break it down now, starting with the bass. And you know, I really like the bass on these. It is quite good indeed. For something at $40, actually, it's kind of ridiculously good. The reach, the extension of the bass is very good. These can reach down nice and low. They do produce a nice sub-bass rumble. It's very controlled. It's not over the top. It's not really powerful, but it is pretty good. Satisfying for pretty much every genre, music genre. And the mid bass is nice and punchy. It's got a very nice, well-defined leading edge. So it's got a good slam on it and a good amount of impact as well. A good weight to it. The bass is fairly fast and has some pretty good texture. It is really quite impressive for a budget IEM, the bass. So now moving on to the mid-range, and the mid-range is, it has excellent clarity. The instrument separation is good. And what can I say? Male vocals are slightly on the thinner side. I would say overall the mid-range is slightly on the cooler side of neutral. But the instrument separation is very good. The resolution is quite good. Detail retrieval is, it's not the best, but it is pretty good. When it comes to vocals, I would say that male vocals are just slightly on the thin side of neutral. They don't have a real richness or thickness or chesty, you know, robust sound. They are a little bit thin, but they are articulate, and they do have a decent amount of body. They do sound quite good, but they're sort of going for technicality a little more over musicality. In terms of female vocals are more upfront and vibrant, but they're not shouty on most occasions. They're quite pleasant to listen to, and the overall instrument separation and mid-range resolution is quite good. The clarity is very good throughout. Yeah, I don't really have any problem with the mid-range, except that some percussion instruments do have a rather sharp attack on them, but that is due to the treble. So let's move on now to the treble, and it is this part of the sound spectrum that will probably be the most divisive among listeners. The treble is quite lively, it's quite forward, and not so much the lower treble, but the peaks in the upper treble, particularly the 8 kilohertz peak. which can introduce some sibilance. It does bring a lot of clarity to the mid-range, which is nice, but it gets a little bit bright and it can be a little bit intense sometimes. And one thing in particular that I found with certain percussion instruments, and in particular hi-hats, a lot of hi-hats sort of fall around that 8 kilohertz range, and if you get one that sort of lands right on that region, it's really way too forward and sounds dissonant. It breaks the cohesion of the overall sound. But that doesn't happen all that often. Like, I actually I listened to a whole bunch of songs, and at first I was thinking, wow, these are great, man. Like, these are fucking up there in the top 3 sub $50. But then I played a song, I think it was Run by Ice Cube, and the hi-hats in that were just brutal, man. They were just shredding my head so bad. But that is a sort of extreme case. It doesn't happen that often. Like I say, you might listen to an entire album and not have any issues whatsoever. But then you'll listen to a particular recording and it's just like, what the fuck happened? Like, I understand that TRN were going for clarity in the mid-range, but you know, you've got to find that balance between clarity and comfortable or easygoing listening. These are a little bit on the intense side of things. But so before we go any further, let's do a couple of real quick comparisons here. Here I've got the Tin Hi-Fi T2 Plus, and in terms of build and comfort, I would put these side by side. They're both extremely comfortable. They're both built beautifully. My personal preference sound-wise would go to the T2 Plus, and that's just because it's a little bit more mature. Although the bass isn't as satisfying on the T2 Plus, but the treble is definitely more to my liking. I think the V90s is a little bit more dynamic. It's a bit more lively. It does have better bass depth and reach, but the treble on this one, depending on your personal preferences, might be a little bit on the edgy side, whereas this one is a little bit safer in its presentation. And then we've got the HZ Sound Heart Mirror, one of the weirdest names, but it makes sense considering they're shaped like a heart and they have a mirror-like surface. These are very, very nice as well. I don't remember the price. I think they're a bit more expensive than both of these other models, but these are a great option. Similar to the V90s, they have very clear mid-range, a sort of a nicely extended bass and a lively treble, but the treble on these is not as strident as the V90s. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is just a single dynamic drive, but I could be wrong. So that's kind of why people are really interested in the V90. I mean, who cannot be enticed by the idea of 6 drivers for less than $50? So anyway, I was also going to compare the Moondrop SSP, but I haven't reviewed that, and that kind of makes it unfair for everything else under $50. Bit of a spoiler there, but that review is coming soon, the SSP. Although I must say, the type of person that would really like this sound, which is like a lively energy, treble energy sound, might not like the Moondrop SSP, but I won't give more away at this point. You'll have to wait for that. It's coming soon. But anyway, to summarize, TRN V90s, great bass, slightly recessed mids, but very clear, good clarity, very clean sounding, pretty good instrument separation, good sound stage on these, nice width to them, and a pretty good sense of depth, fairly good imaging as well. And the treble, you'll either love it or hate it. It is a little bit forward in the upper treble. Actually, crash cymbals sound pretty good on these. They're no problem at all. But the problem that I have personally is with things like hi-hats. Percussion instruments in general just have a kind of a sharp attack that are a little bit intense for my personal taste. But you might like them. You know, considering that these are only about $40, I think if you bought these and you don't mind a little bit of treble energy, you're going to love them. So that about wraps it up. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you found value in this video, go ahead and give it a like, Parfam audiophile style. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more reviews like this in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you later.